Welcome to the Taken Hour. Lie back, close your eyes, and let the story begin. Don't forget to subscribe for more journeys into the quiet corners of the universe. Tonight's story begins under the vast, silent canvas of the Nevada sky. Near a long, unmarked fence where the desert holds its breath, a man is found. He stands perfectly still, not in defiance, but in quiet observation, as the beams of flashlights converge upon him. He offers no resistance, only a serene and unnerving calm as he is led away into the deep desert night. The air in the sterile processing room is cold, but the man seems not to notice. He wears simple, unadorned clothing of a material no one can identify. The officers ask him questions, their voices low and firm, but his silence is a gentle wall. He simply watches them, his gaze not empty, but filled with a profound and patient understanding. There is no fear in his eyes, only a deep, abiding peace that seems to ripple outward, subtly calming the tense atmosphere of the room. They check for documents, but find none. No wallet, no keys, no phone. Nothing to connect him to this world. His fingerprints return no matches. His face is a ghost in every database. It is as if he was born into that moment in the desert, a man made of starlight and dust. His only possession is the quiet stillness he carries with him, a shield more effective than any armor. The authorities are left with a man who is both completely present and utterly absent. Finally, he speaks. His voice is smooth, a perfect, unplaceable English. It holds no regional tells, no hint of a foreign tongue. It is like listening to a language's purest, theoretical form. "I am a tourist," he says, his words gentle yet clear. When they ask him from where, he simply smiles. "I came to see how it all began." The statement hangs in the air, a quiet puzzle box with no apparent key, leaving the officers more confused than before. Hours turn into a day. The man, they call him the traveler, is moved to a comfortable, secure room. He has not asked for food or water, yet he shows no signs of fatigue or distress. He sits by the reinforced window, watching the clouds drift by in the desert sky. It is a simple, mundane view, but he watches with the rapt attention of someone seeing the sky for the very first time. His calm is a mystery, a quiet rebellion against the urgency of his captors. From a monitor in another room, they observe him. He breathes slowly, rhythmically. His posture is perfect, relaxed but aware. Sometimes his eyes will close, and the faintest smile will touch his lips, as if he is listening to a distant, beautiful music. Those watching feel a strange sense of tranquility themselves, the sharp edges of their suspicion softening into a deep, compelling curiosity. Who was this man, and what silent world did he inhabit right before their eyes? A specialist is called, Dr. Eris Thorne. She is not an interrogator, but a linguist and a student of human connection. Her reputation is built on patience, on her ability to understand the unspoken. When she enters the observation room, she doesn't look at the monitors first. She closes her eyes, listens to the quiet hum of the facility, and tries to feel the presence of the person on the other side of the wall. She is here to listen, not to demand. Thorn watches the traveler for a long time before they meet. She notes the way his gaze follows motes of dust dancing in a sunbeam. She sees how his breathing seems to sync with the gentle rustle of the air vents. He is not just in the room, he is a part of it. He is connected to his environment in a way she has only read about in ancient meditative texts. He is not a prisoner waiting for release, but a visitor, simply being. Their first meeting is silent for many minutes. Thorn simply sits with him, sharing the quiet space. Finally, she speaks, her voice soft. "The sky is beautiful today." The traveler turns his gaze from the window to her, and his eyes hold the depth of a starry night. "It is," he replies. "It is full of music. Can you hear it?" Thorn listens, and for a fleeting moment, she thinks she can almost hear a faint, cosmic hum beneath the silence. Thorn's superiors want answers. They grow impatient with her quiet, methodical approach. But she insists. "He is not hiding anything," she explains in a hushed briefing. "I believe he is simply waiting for us to learn how to ask the right question." She feels they are on the cusp of something extraordinary, a truth that cannot be forced, only allowed to unfold in its own time. She asks for one more day, one more quiet conversation. In the soft light of the room, which now feels less like a cell and more like a sanctuary, Aris Thorn sits with the traveler. She has abandoned the pretense of questioning. Instead, she simply listens. She has spent her life studying the structure of language, the way civilizations encode their realities into words. But with him, the silence itself feels like a language. She lets it settle around them, a warm, comfortable blanket. When he finally speaks, his voice is a gentle current in the quiet river of the room. "The moment you are waiting for is not an arrival of ships or a declaration from the heavens," he says, his gaze distant. "It is quieter than that. It is a change in the resonance of things, a single note played across the universe that this world is finally ready to hear. I am here to witness the moment the instrument is tuned." He speaks of time not as a line, but as a vast, complex chord, with every moment vibrating against every other. His purpose, he explains, is not to interfere, but to archive, to be a perfect, placid mirror for one of history's most beautiful and delicate moments. Eris feels the tension leave her body, replaced by a profound sense of awe. This is not an interrogation. It is a lesson. Eris asks him about his home. The traveler smiles, a gesture that seems to hold a deep, ancient nostalgia. "My home is not a place you would find on a map of the stars," he explains softly. "It is a place on the map of time, a time so far from now that the very concept of a single human has become as quaint as a flickering candle in a world of suns. We are connected, not just to each other, but to the fabric of existence itself. He describes a future where consciousness is not confined to a body, but flows like a gentle river through the cosmos. He speaks of the era before this one as the Great Silence, a long period where humanity looked to the stars and felt only an echo of its own loneliness. But the silence is about to break, he continues, his voice barely a whisper. Not with a shout, but with a breath. A quiet arrival is happening all around you. Not an invasion. Think of it more like the first spores of a new kind of life, drifting on cosmic winds, settling on fertile ground. They are particles of light, of information, of peace. They are drawn here, to this place, to this time, to see how it all began. Dr. Thorne left the room, feeling as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet. The sterile, familiar hallways of the facility now seemed alien, and the quiet hum of the ventilation system felt different, imbued with a new and strange resonance. His words echoed in her mind, spores of light, a universe tuning itself, a great silence about to break. It was poetry, not intelligence data. How could she possibly translate this into a report for her superiors? They dealt in facts, in verifiable evidence and tactical assessments. They wanted to know if he was a threat, what technology he possessed, and what his government's intentions were. But the traveler spoke of no government, no technology she could comprehend, and his only intention seemed to be to bear witness. As she sat at her terminal, the blinking cursor on the blank page mocked her. She began to type, then deleted the words. Any attempt to reduce his message to bureaucratic language felt like a betrayal, like trying to capture the vastness of the night sky in a small gray box. She realized with a startling clarity that she believed him. Not with the certainty of a scientist, but with the quiet conviction of intuition. She was no longer just his observer. She had become the first student of his gentle, cosmic philosophy. The briefing was as difficult as she had feared. General Maddox, the facility director, listened with a face carved from granite, his patience wearing thin. Thorne chose her words with surgical precision, framing the traveler's concepts in the language of theoretical physics and quantum mechanics. She spoke of informational particles instead of spores of light, and cosmic resonance shifts instead of a universal tuning. But the essence of the message remained, and to Maddox it sounded like nonsense. "Doctor," he interrupted, his voice a low rumble of authority, "I need actionable intelligence. Is he a scout for an invasion? Is he a new form of psychological weapon? I don't have time for poetry." Thorne stood her ground, her calmness a stark contrast to his rising frustration. "With respect, General, I believe our definition of actionable may be too narrow here. His message isn't a threat to be neutralized, but a phenomenon to be understood. Forcing it into a military framework is like trying to catch mist with a net." The general was unmoved. He gave her 24 more hours. If she didn't produce something tangible, a schematic, a location, a verifiable piece of data, he would turn the traveler over to the persuaders, a team whose methods were far less gentle than hers. The ultimatum hung in the air, cold and heavy. Returning to the traveler's room, Aris felt the weight of the general's deadline. She found him not by the window, but standing in the center of the room, his head tilted as if listening to a faraway sound. He turned to her as she entered, his expression one of serene empathy. "The walls here are thick," he said softly, "but fear has its own frequency. It travels easily." Aris didn't need to explain her predicament. He already understood. She asked him, her voice quiet and strained, if there was anything he could offer, anything tangible she could use. He smiled gently. The most tangible things are often the most subtle. He asked her to look at the plain white wall. "Focus on the space between the atoms," he instructed. "Listen to the silence there." She did as he asked, feeling foolish at first, but his calm was infectious. As she stared, a faint, shimmering pattern began to emerge on the wall. It was a delicate, intricate web of light, like a constellation of stars being born. It swirled into a perfect, breathtaking spiral galaxy. It was not a projection. It was light emanating from the wall itself, a brief and beautiful tear in the fabric of the ordinary. It lasted only a moment before fading, leaving Aris breathless. "Tell them," the traveler said, "that the universe is learning to dream through matter." Aris did not report the vision on the wall. She knew it would be dismissed as a hallucination, a trick of the light, or a sign that she was compromised. Instead, she spent hours scouring global network feeds, searching for anything that might corroborate the traveler's words. And she found it. Not in one dramatic headline, but scattered across 1,000 quiet data points. Astronomers were reporting faint, unexplained energy signatures from deep space. Signatures that were not chaotic, but ordered, almost musical. From weather stations in the high Arctic to deep-sea buoys in the Pacific, sensors were picking up a persistent, low-frequency hum that had no discernible origin. And there were human reports, too. Therapists noted a small but statistically significant drop in anxiety cases. Air traffic controllers spoke of moments of unusual calm in their high-stress environments. It was all anecdotal, disconnected, and easily dismissed on its own. But when viewed together, it formed a pattern, a picture of a world subtly, gently changing. It was as if a calming presence was seeping into the planet's consciousness, a quiet tide rising. The arrival wasn't a singular event, it was a process, a slow and steady saturation of peace happening everywhere at once. The spores of light were landing. With the general's deadline looming, Aris made a choice. She compiled a report, but it was a work of careful curation. She included the hard data, the anomalous energy signatures, the unexplained acoustic phenomena, the global sensor readings. She framed it all within a plausible scientific hypothesis, suggesting a previously unknown form of cosmic radiation with potential psychoactive properties. It was a stretch, but it was grounded in language the general would understand. She omitted any mention of the traveler's true explanations, the cosmic music, the universe dreaming. She was no longer just an observer. She was a gatekeeper, translating a profound, mystical truth into a language that would keep it safe. She was building a firewall of scientific jargon around a sacred secret. When she handed the report to General Maddox, she felt a pang of guilt for her deception, but it was overshadowed by a fierce protective instinct. She was buying time, not just for the traveler, but for the world, giving the quiet arrival a chance to unfold without being trampled by fear and misunderstanding. Maddox took the report, his expression unreadable. "This is something," he said, his skepticism still evident. "It's a start. Keep working." She had her extension. The traveler seemed to understand and approve of her actions. He spent his days in a state of deep, peaceful meditation, but his awareness felt vast. One afternoon, he spoke to Eris about the nature of his own people. He described a civilization that had outgrown the need for physical form as a permanent state. "We are like rivers," he said, his eyes looking at something far beyond the walls of the room. "We can flow together as one, a great ocean of thought, or we can pour ourselves into a vessel, a body like this one, to experience the universe from a single, precious point of view, to feel the warmth of a star on skin, to taste water, to hear a voice. These are profound luxuries in a timeless existence." He explained that his current form was temporary, a vessel of flesh and bone carefully constructed to interface with this specific time and place. It was a biological archive, recording not just sights and sounds, but the very feeling of this era, the anxiety, the hope, the loneliness, the love. "When I return," he concluded, "I will not just tell them what happened. I will be the memory of it. They will feel this moment through me." Eris was humbled by the scale of his purpose. He was not just a tourist. He was a living library, and his subject was the soul of her world. General Maddox was not satisfied. The data in Aris's report was intriguing but inconclusive, and his superiors were demanding answers. He decided to see the man for himself, overriding Aris's protests. He entered the room with an air of absolute command, his posture rigid, his eyes sharp and analytical. The traveler sat calmly, his serene presence a stark contrast to the general's contained aggression. Maddox began his interrogation directly, his voice sharp. "Who are you? Who sent you? What is your objective?" The traveler did not answer immediately. He simply looked at the general, his gaze holding no judgment, only a deep, penetrating understanding. "You carry a great weight," the traveler said, his voice soft but clear. "The memory of many battles, the fear of what the next one might bring. You have spent a lifetime building walls to protect your people." The general was taken aback, his prepared questions forgotten. The traveler's words were not an accusation, but a simple statement of fact. "The highest wall you have built is within yourself," the traveler continued gently, "and the thing you fear most is not an enemy from the stars, but the silence you would find if you ever stopped fighting." Maddox stood frozen, the armor of his authority pierced by a simple, empathetic observation. He had no response. After a long, silent moment, he turned and left the room without another word. After the general's visit, a new quiet settled over the facility. The pressure on Eris lessened. Maddox seemed to be observing from a distance now, unsettled and reflective. This gave Eris and the traveler more time. One evening, as the desert sun bled across the horizon in hues of orange and purple, the traveler invited her to learn how to listen. "The music of the universe is not heard with the ears," he said. "It is felt with the soul. Sit with me. Breathe." He guided her through a simple meditation, asking her to focus on the rhythm of her own breath, then the beat of her heart, then the subtle vibrations of the room around her. He encouraged her to extend her awareness outward, beyond the facility, to the sleeping desert, the vast ocean, the spinning planet itself. At first, she felt only silence, but slowly, patiently, she began to perceive something else beneath it. It was not a sound, but a feeling, a complex, interwoven pattern of existence. She felt the deep, slow life of ancient trees, the frantic energy of the cities, the silent dance of the planets. It was all connected, all part of one immense, harmonious composition. For a moment, she lost her sense of self and became a note in that cosmic symphony. When she opened her eyes, tears were streaming down her face. Tears not of sadness, but of overwhelming, beautiful connection. The world was changing more quickly now. What had been subtle anomalies were becoming global phenomena. Across the planet, in skies that should have been empty, people began to see them. Vast, silent, shimmering curtains of light, like auroras, but in impossible colors and intricate, shifting patterns. They were not localized. They appeared over cities and oceans, mountains and deserts, visible to everyone. Scientists were baffled, offering theories of solar winds or new atmospheric phenomena, but none could explain the sheer beauty and complexity of the displays. The lights did not inspire fear. They were calming, hypnotic. People would gather in streets and parks, looking up in shared, silent wonder. Crime rates dropped, international tensions eased, as if the world's leaders were distracted by a far greater mystery. The music Eris had felt was now being broadcast for all to see. The traveler watched the news reports with a serene smile. "They are waking up," he said. "The spores have taken root. This is the first bloom of a planetary consciousness. Humanity is beginning to see itself as one, reflected in the light of the cosmos. The great silence is ending, not with a voice, but with a shared moment of awe." The arrival was no longer a secret held in a secure room. It was a global light show, a gentle, irrefutable announcement. The global auroras were the outward sign of an inner change. The traveler explained to Eris that this was the first harmony, a resonance between the cosmic energy and the collective consciousness of humanity. "The light you see in the sky is a reflection of the light now stirring in people's hearts," he said. "For millennia, your species has been defined by separation, tribe against tribe, nation against nation, individual against individual. This new energy does not erase individuality. It simply illuminates the connections that were always there, hidden in the shadows of fear." He spoke of the next phase, the first touch. It would not be a physical contact, but a moment of direct, conscious communion. "Soon," he explained, "people will begin to feel what you felt, a direct sense of connection to each other and to the life of the planet, A quiet understanding that will pass between strangers on a street. A shared dream that will ripple through the world. He told her it would be confusing at first, perhaps even disorienting, as the hard boundaries of the ego became more permeable. But it is the necessary next step in your evolution, he assured her. The beginning of an empathy so profound it will make your old ways of conflict impossible. His role as observer was nearing its end. His purpose was to witness this final, delicate transition. Eris didn't have to wait long. It happened on a quiet afternoon, as she was reviewing atmospheric data on her terminal. For a single, timeless moment, the numbers on the screen dissolved into pure meaning. She felt the wind they represented, tasted the moisture, understood the intricate dance of high and low pressure, not as a scientist, but as a part of the system itself. Simultaneously, she felt a wave of something. It was the calm focus of the guard down the hall, the nagging worry of a technician on the lower level, and the deep, weary resolve of General Maddox in his office. She felt their emotions not as an invasion, but as a shared current in a river they all occupied. It wasn't telepathy in the way she'd read about. It was empathy, magnified to an impossible degree. It was a profound, undeniable, and deeply peaceful understanding of the other minds around her. The experience lasted only a few seconds, but it changed her irrevocably. When the sensation faded, the world felt quieter, simpler. She looked over at the traveler, who was watching her with a knowing smile. "The first touch," he said. "It is beginning." Eris knew then that she was not just studying the most important event in human history. She was living it. A few days later, as the first touch rippled across the globe in gentle, intermittent waves, the traveler told Eris his time was coming to an end. "My vessel can only hold this moment for so long," he explained, his voice holding a trace of something new, not sadness, but a sense of completion. "The archive is full. The memory of your world's awakening is now a part of me, and I must carry it home." The thought of his departure left Eris with a hollow ache. In a short time, he had completely reoriented her understanding of the universe. "Will you come back?" she asked, the question feeling small and childish. "In a way, we never leave," he responded cryptically. "The future you will build is the home I come from. Every act of peace, every moment of connection you create from now on is a part of the journey back to me." He told her that his departure would be as quiet as his arrival. He would simply fade. "Do not be sad," he said, seeing the emotion in her eyes. "This is not an ending. You are the custodians of this new dawn. My journey is to carry the story of its beginning. Your journey is to live it." He was giving her a final gift, not a piece of advanced technology or a secret of the universe, but a responsibility, a purpose. The future was now in the hands of a humanity that was, for the first time, learning to be truly human. In the days that followed, the world began to process the impossible. The first touch was not a constant state, but it would arrive in gentle, unpredictable waves. A driver in traffic would suddenly feel the profound weariness of the person in the car ahead and let them merge with a gentle wave. In a tense corporate boardroom, a CEO would unexpectedly feel the genuine hope of a young intern presenting an idea and listen with a new and open mind. These moments were fleeting, but they left a lasting residue of understanding. The media struggled to name it, calling it the global empathy wave or the sympathy effect. Scientists proposed theories involving quantum entanglement and bioresonant fields, but these were just clinical terms for a sacred experience. For the first time, humanity was experiencing itself not as a collection of 7 billion separate stories, but as a single, sprawling consciousness, learning the grammar of its own heart. The old anxieties and divisions didn't vanish overnight, but they began to lose their sharp edges, smoothed by a rising tide of shared feeling. The world was not becoming a hive mind, it was becoming a family, finally recognizing its own members.
General Maddox sat in his office, the door closed, the blinds drawn. He had resisted the feeling, attributing it to stress, to the doctor's strange influence. He prided himself on his internal fortress, the discipline that had defined his life. But the wave came for him too. It happened as he was reviewing a security roster. His gaze fell on the name of a young guard, and suddenly he was no longer just a name on a page. The general felt the young man's quiet pride in his uniform, the dull ache in his feet from a long shift, and a vivid, loving memory of his daughter's laughter from a phone call that morning. The feeling was so clear, so real, it buckled his defenses. For a moment, the vast chasm of rank and experience between them disappeared, and they were simply two people, sharing a space of quiet duty. Maddox leaned back in his chair, the rigid posture he had maintained for decades finally slackening. The enemy he had spent his life preparing for had never been an army or a fleet of ships. It had been the absence of this very feeling. The traveler had not defeated him with a weapon. He had disarmed him with a connection. In the silence of his office, the soldier finally found a kind of peace he never knew he was fighting for. Eris began to notice a change in the traveler. It was subtle at first. His physical form, once perfectly solid, now seemed to carry its own internal light, making his edges appear soft and indistinct in the low light of the room. At times, he would become slightly translucent, and she could faintly see the wall behind him through his body, like looking through old, beautiful glass. His voice, too, was changing. It was just as clear, but it seemed to be coming from a place both very near and infinitely far away, like an echo from the future. He was beginning his journey home, and the process was not a departure, but a dissolution. His vessel was releasing its hold on this specific point in space, its atoms preparing to return to the cosmic flow. He explained it to Eris not as a death, but as a release. A book does not cease to exist when the last page is read, he told her, his form shimmering gently. Its story simply becomes a part of the one who reads it. My time as a single page is ending, but the story is now yours to continue. He was becoming less of a person and more of a presence, a living memory preparing to fade back into the light. In one of their final conversations, Eris asked the question that now mattered most. What do we do now? What is the next step for us? The traveler, now a shimmering silhouette of gentle light, turned his gaze towards her. You will learn to navigate by a new compass, he said, his voice a chorus of soft tones. For generations, you navigated by fear, by scarcity, by the need to conquer.
Now you will learn to navigate by connection. Your greatest challenge will be patience. This new empathy is a seed, not a fully grown tree. There will be times when the old ways reassert themselves, when fear tries to build its walls again. Do not fight it. Simply feel it, understand its source, and let the connection dissolve it. Your most powerful tool is no longer the weapon, but the witness. Your greatest strength is no longer in the fist, but in the open hand. He spoke of a future where human achievement would be measured not by wealth or power, but by the depth and richness of its shared consciousness. Build gardens, not fortresses, he whispered. Compose symphonies, not battle plans. Explore the cosmos within as much as the one without. The beginning you have witnessed is not the end of your struggle, but the beginning of your true purpose, to become the universe's vessel for beauty and understanding. Eris looked out the window at the long, straight fence that marked the facility's perimeter, the very fence where he had been found. "Why here?" she asked. "Of all the places on Earth, why begin at a place dedicated to secrets and separation?" The traveler's form pulsed with a soft, warm light. "Because symbols are important," he replied. "They are anchors for consciousness. This place, in the imagination of your world, was a great wall between the known and the unknown, between your people and the mysteries of the sky. It was a monument to fear. What better place to plant a seed of connection than in the deepest shadow of division? The most beautiful light is the one that dawns in the darkest place." He explained that his arrival was a deliberate act of cosmic poetry. By appearing at the most famous symbol of human separation from the universe, he had turned the symbol inside out. "The fence is still there," he said, his voice fading slightly. "But it no longer keeps the world out. It now serves as a quiet reminder of a time when you believed you were alone. It is no longer a barrier, but the first line of a new story." Eris understood. The story had to begin where the old one had reached its most fearful conclusion. His departure came at dawn. There was no sound, no great event. Eris sat with him, watching as the first rays of the morning sun touched the desert floor. The traveler's form, which had been a shimmering outline, began to lose its cohesion. He did not vanish. He unraveled. He became a slow, silent cascade of light particles, like dust motes dancing in a sunbeam, each one a tiny star. He looked at her one last time, and his face was no longer a face, but a constellation of pure, peaceful understanding. He offered no final words, for none were needed. The message was complete. The particles of light that composed him drifted apart, swirling gently in the air of the room. They did not disappear, but merged with the light of the new day, becoming indistinguishable from the sunlight streaming through the window. Within moments, he was gone. But the room was not empty. It was filled with a palpable presence, a deep and abiding peace that felt like a final, silent blessing. Eris sat in the quiet, bathed in the morning light, feeling not loss, but a profound and peaceful sense of continuity. The storyteller had gone, but his story was now woven into the fabric of the world. When General Maddox entered the room an hour later, he found Eris sitting calmly by the window, watching the sunrise. The room was empty. There was no sign of a struggle,
no evidence of an escape, no trace of the traveler ever being there, save for the faint, lingering feeling of peace that even the general could not deny. He looked at Eris, his question unspoken. "He's home," she said simply, her voice clear and calm. Maddox scanned the room, his old instincts searching for an explanation that would fit into a report, but he found none. He looked at the empty chair, then back at Eris, and for the first time, he did not see a subordinate or a scientist, but a person who had been touched by something beyond his comprehension. He nodded slowly. "What are your orders, Doctor?" he asked, the words feeling strange and new. He was no longer her superior in this matter. He was a student, and she was the only one who had read the lesson. "I believe," Eris said, turning from the window to face him, a gentle smile on her lips, "that our first order of business is to open the gates." The world did not fall into chaos, nor did it ascend into a perfect utopia. It simply softened. The global auroras became a permanent, gentle feature of the night sky, a constant, beautiful reminder of the universe's connection. The first touch evolved from a surprising wave into a quiet, underlying current of daily life. It didn't solve all problems, but it changed the nature of them. Arguments were diffused by sudden, unwanted glimpses into the other's pain. Negotiations between nations were altered by leaders who could feel, not just hear, the hopes of the other's people. It became difficult to hurt someone when you could feel a faint echo of their suffering in yourself. The world's great challenges, climate change, inequality, disease, were no longer seen as battles to be won, but as imbalances in a shared system to be healed with collective care. Humanity hadn't lost its individuality, but it had gained a profound sense of shared identity. They were all notes in the same quiet, cosmic song, and they were finally learning to play in harmony. Eris walked out of the facility for the last time, not as a prisoner or a specialist, but as a free woman. She carried no files, no reports. The truth of what had happened was not in documents, but in the air she breathed, in the sky above. She stood in the Nevada desert, at the edge of the long fence, the place where it had all begun. The sterile chain link and barbed wire now seemed like ancient relics, artifacts from a forgotten, fearful age. A warm desert breeze rustled past, and for a moment she felt it carry a faint echo of the traveler's peace, a whisper of the cosmic music he had taught her to hear. She was no longer Dr. Thorne, the linguist who translated words. She was simply Eris, a listener, a witness to the dawn. Her work here was done, but her life's true purpose was just beginning. She didn't know where she would go next, but it didn't matter. For the first time, she felt truly, completely at home in the world, under the vast, silent, and now deeply familiar sky. General Maddox stood before a committee, not in Washington, but at the facility itself, which was now known simply as the Observatory. His crisp uniform was gone, replaced by simple civilian clothes. He wasn't giving a defense briefing, He was proposing a new charter. The base's powerful sensors, once used to scan for threats, were being recalibrated to map the gentle, rhythmic hum of the Earth's new consciousness. The holding cells were being converted into quiet chambers for meditation and study. The formidable walls and fences remained, but as Eris had predicted, they were now a monument, a museum of a bygone era of fear. Maddox was no longer a general preparing for war. He was a guardian of peace, his final mission to protect the fragile, beautiful new empathy that had taken root in the heart of humanity. He had spent his life looking to the skies for an enemy, only to find that the most profound discovery was not an alien other, but a deeper, more connected version of themselves. His last battle was over, and the peace he had found was more absolute than any victory he could have imagined. 1 year later, the world was a quieter, more thoughtful place. The great engine of global conflict had not just stopped, it had been dismantled, piece by piece, as its fuel, fear, and misunderstanding had become scarce. Humanity's boundless energy had been turned inward and outward in new ways. Art and music flourished, expressing the nuances of the shared consciousness. Science embarked on a new golden age, exploring the physics of empathy and the nature of connection. Space exploration continued, no longer as a race for dominance, but as a quiet, collective pilgrimage to better understand the vast, living universe of which they were a part. There were still disagreements, still moments of pain and sorrow, but they were met with a deep well of collective compassion. The memory of the lone man found by a desert fence was not a public holiday or a religion. It was a private truth, a gentle resonance felt in moments of quiet contemplation, a story told not in words, but in the silent, empathetic glance between two strangers who suddenly understood they were not strangers at all. Eris sat with a small group of children in a green field under the soft glow of the twilight sky. They weren't in a classroom. They were simply lying on the cool grass, looking up at the first stars and the gentle, celestial auroras. She wasn't teaching them facts or history. She was teaching them how to listen. "Close your eyes," she whispered, her voice as calm as the evening air. "Feel the breath of the person next to you. Feel the slow, deep breath of the earth beneath you. Can you hear it? The quiet song that connects us all." The children were silent, their faces serene in the fading light. A small boy smiled, his eyes still closed. "It sounds like home," he whispered. Eris smiled too. The traveler was gone, but his message was safe. It lived on, not in a secret file or a history book, but here, in the quiet hearts of the future, who were born into a world that was finally learning the language of the stars. The story of the tourist from the future was over, but the journey of humanity had just truly begun.